Coming up, the next session is on the next generation of esports VR competitive gaming. And we are very pleased to have Mr. Steve Zhao, founder and CEO Sandbox VR, to share how VR is expanding into the world of competitive gaming and esports. Steve has nearly 2 decades of entertainment experience and was previously the founder and CEO of Blue Tea Games, as well as the developer of some of the best-selling casual game franchises. Now, without further ado, let's hear from Steve to learn more about the exciting work of Sandbox VR and their latest development.
Hello, everyone. Steve Zhao, CEO of Sandbox VR. Today, I'm just going to talk a little bit about our company and what we've done in VR and in particular esports. I'll talk about why VR is next gen of esports, and also if you're interested in developing for VR, especially esports title, what you could do next. So we founded Sandbox VR back in 2016. We started developing games for the Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive, and the PlayStation VR, but we transitioned to location-based games. So we have about 12 stores all over the world, mostly in the US right now, with 5 pieces of content. One of our content is called UFL, which is Unbound Fighting League. It is our esports VR title. So in that experience, group of friends, they will come to our location, and once they're inside, we'll strap them on with haptic vest, VR backpacks, headsets, and we'll give them props. So they'll split into 2 teams, and what they'll do is going to be one-on-one battle where they get to choose weapons such as flaming swords, like double claws or electric trident. So these weapons, the way they fight, it's very similar to what people would fight if it was like a normal sports. But then we'll add the gaming element into it, where they can also utilize a super move. So they can also shoot fireballs or drop explosive mines. So with that in mind, it is kind of like a hybrid between sports and esports. So our company has a pretty good backing. We've been funded by Alibaba and Andreessen of total of over $80 million, and also including athlete investors such as NBA star Kevin Durant, soccer star Keisuke Honda, as well as skateboarding legend Tony Hawk's. So I'm gonna talk about why VR is the next gen of esports. So there's 4 main components I look into. Number one is the form factor. So when I think about what esport is today, mostly it's played on the PC. So it's the mouse and keyboard, or maybe it's a gaming pad if it's on console. So generally, when you watch as spectators, you're pretty much just focused on the game, and the athlete, it's just more of a window that you see in the corner. Well, VR is very interesting because it is truly a sport. The controller is your whole body, and which lends itself to a lot of competitive elements. And in UFL, when folks come in and they play for 20 minutes, they will literally come out drenched in sweat from the whole experience. So the form factor of combining actual sports allows a, a lot of different types of content to be built. But when we think about content, one thing we think about is spectating, right? In normal sports, you would watch the athletes. In esport experiences, most of the time, spectators, they will watch the game on the screen, and sometimes the players' faces. But in VR, it is an intersection of both. And if implemented correctly, it actually can be the best of both worlds, where spectators, they can cheer for both players and also watch the game at the same time. And this is one of the elements that we've done where in UFL, after customers come out of our experience, we give them these videos that shows them fighting in real life and in VR. And it's one of the highlights that guests tells us when they come out playing from our experience. But beyond us, what we've seen is actually very interesting way to spectate in VR. And one of the examples I can think of is the game Beat Saber. If you're not familiar with Beat Saber, you can think of it like Guitar Hero, but instead of playing the guitar and trying to play um, the notes are coming at you, and you have like 2 sabers, which resembles lightsabers, and you hit them in rhythm. So what's very interesting about it in spectating mode is the way it's being designed, and you can watch it on YouTube. Is as spectators, you're watching kind of from behind the scenes on a third person perspective, and you actually see the real person playing, but then the world around that person is all in digital. And it's amazing because it blends so perfectly. And if you look on YouTube, you can see videos in the millions of views. So it does lend itself to very interesting format in terms of how you can do spectating in VR. So the third thing that's very interesting about VR as esport is from the perspective of being athletes. So because playing in VR is a very high physical activity, um, what it would do is you would encourage a new generation of athletes who both want to be physically fit to play well, but having mastery in the games. And when we think of building any type of games, whether it's for VR, whether it's for PC or console, um, every type of genre can encourage different type of athletes, or I would say players, and it creates very new ways for players to become, famous at what they do. And VR is no different. If it's something that will pick up, it will encourage new forms of athletes to come and to be part of your experience and part of your journey. And one of the most important thing when I think about any project and the success of the project is timing. So I believe that when Oculus first came out back in 2016, when the first version came out, it wasn't the best time um, for VR. And the reason why was headsets a few years ago, they were tethered, as in the headset is wirelessly connected to a PC. And the disadvantage of that is there's very limited mobility. And also the cost of using the headset is pretty high, and you see a high attrition rate of users not being able to use it on a regular basis. But since then, we've seen all-in-one headset where they're no longer bounded by any wires. And the prime example is the new headset by Facebook, the Oculus Quest. Um, the PC is actually in the headset. So all experiences run from the headset. You don't need any computers. Um, and what that means is if you're not tethered, that means there is a freedom of movement. And the new Oculus Quest, it has something called like a Guardian Inside Out tracking, which also helps a player gets tracked better. So without the wires and with the inside out tracking, what that does is you can create experiences that can be a lot more physical. And I believe it is very physical experiences that lends itself to a platform to develop very good esport VR experiences. So those are the main four things of why VR is the next gen. The form factor works perfectly where you can utilize your whole body as a controller. There's very interesting way to do spectating. Access to athletes where athlete can utilize both the physicality but also the mastery of the game. And also right now is a very good timing to look into this because of the new all-in-one headsets such as the Facebook Oculus Quest. So if you're interested in developing for the VR esports title, um, I would encourage you to build for VR. So what that means is don't think in terms of keyboards or mices or joysticks. Really think of what VR is good for and how do you utilize the controller and how do you move. The movement has to be very natural to VR and very natural to the sports that you have in mind. So think about the control. Number two, think about how you want to pace the experience. So in a lot of competitive sports, folks might be sitting down and playing for long duration. Um, but in VR, it's very likely that you want players to play standing up, right? So think about in terms of the players, how would you want to pace experience, and how would you want to create experience that's very competitive in that environment? And number three, think about the platform of VR. What works on PC may not work on mobile. We done games when the mobile first came out, and we seen one of the earliest game where people tried to bring what they thought was like the Game Boy into the phone. They try to use the touch screen where you can press the button A and B and the controller pad. See, that wasn't the best way to do it. And then when companies like Rovio decided, why don't we just flick with a finger and you can slingshot a bird, you know, that's when it becomes very natural. So think about the platform. How do you make it very natural? Understand what makes people love VR, dig deep, and understand why. So with that in mind, when you want to build for the VR esports, I encourage you to check out existing titles out right now. Particularly check out Beast Saber and check out Pistol Whip. Those two experiences, in my mind, are amazingly great for spectating. You can see videos of them online, and people love posting about them. People love talking about them. To look into the VR competitive landscape, I would recommend you try out games such as Lone Echo, or a new game that's coming out from Resolution Games called Blaston. So just check out esport experiences out right now in VR. See what you like about them, what you don't like about them, especially how can you improve them. This is still a very, very new industry. So there's a lot of things that hasn't been invented yet. And if you could be the one to do it, it could be very valuable. And of course, most importantly, I got to plug our company. Definitely bring your friends and come visit Sandbox VR in Simjiazhou for a full body VR experience in UFL. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for Steve's wonderful sharing on the latest development of VR competitive gaming.